Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. Make sure you go check out all my books. Start with the best-selling Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and the 2 workbooks that are fillable that go right along with it, the Threat Assessment and Defense Assessment workbooks. Also, for your children, The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. Now, that's a book of pictures you give to your children, and you let them go through it, and in the pictures are lessons about security and awareness, and you, the parent, go over to teamlittlebigs.com and download the free lesson plans that go with each picture. All of this is a package that makes your life, your family more aware, safer, and able to look at yourself from the attacker's point of view. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 accompanying workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children, and the lesson plans that exist on teamlittlebigs.com. Go check them out wherever books are sold. And let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam, and this is The Experts. Oh, yeah. So today, a lot of aggravation, a lot of ethics talk from the left. It's interesting, I've never heard, not in my recollection, this many people on the left, especially in social media, talking about ethics. But you know, they never talk about morals. You never hear morals come out. It's always about ethics and values. Very interesting. So I started looking at all this stuff. Of course, late at night when I do my podcast, it's usually, really late or early for some people. I go through and, of course, I start getting creative. I'm a creative person at night. I'm very creative. That's when I usually do this podcast. And I get active on Twitter as well. And it's interesting, over the past 2 days of monitoring, actually this weekend I didn't do a whole lot like everybody else. I didn't go a whole lot of places or do a whole lot of things. And I just started monitoring this stuff, watching the news as well. Because I usually don't watch the news. So I tuned in, watched a lot of news. It's hilarious. Today, Anderson Cooper literally almost started crying. And, I'll be honest with you. When I was on CNN, I thought Anderson Cooper was a nice guy. He was nice to me. And he actually was very cordial to me and ran a tight ship as far as the show goes. I've been on almost all the news shows, at least as of 3-4 years ago. I was on all of them, and not much has changed in that industry, but they're all, I think a long time ago, when this first started in 2016, I think a lot of these people were leftists. There's no doubt about it. They were truly leftists. And I think over the past almost 4 years now, or it's at 4 years, they have become so emotionally involved with this thing that they do that before it was an ideological bend and perhaps they had emotional ties to it, and they would debate you, argue with you. I mean, listen, I lived in New York for 15 years. I know exactly how they were before President Trump and since. And, they were emotional about it, but you didn't see the level of emotion that you've seen since Hillary Clinton lost. Really, that was kind of like the breaking point for a lot of these people. But lately, it seems like, and maybe it's just because coronavirus has everybody, somewhat emotional because everybody's so bored about to go out of their minds, that these people have just become emotional. I mean, it's even on the right. I've seen, people that claim to be conservatives. I posted something the other day because I went to a protest after I did the emceeing, virtual emceeing for the Frogman Down Memorial Toast to the Brotherhood 2020. If you want to see that, you can go to frogmandown.org and you can click on the link and it'll take you to another website where you can click on the video. And it's also on YouTube as well. And you can look that up. And it was great. It was really well done, really great. And what a tribute, all around the country, frogmen saying reading the names of fallen brothers and raising a toast to them. And I put that on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram. I didn't put it on Instagram, but I put it on LinkedIn. And sure enough, several people on the right, because after I went to that, or after I did that, I went to a protest at a VA facility where they house, it's like an old folks home for veterans and, or elderly clinic, whatever you want to call it. And they, over 70 people died because Cuomo decided to put, it's one of many elderly clinics where Cuomo decided to put people into the facility that were COVID positive and just killed massive amounts of people for no reason whatsoever. It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I'll talk about that. I've talked about that. I'll talk about more. But anyway, I put we went there. So I just done this virtual toast to the Brotherhood. And then I went and did a real quick video from where I was protesting. I had my mask on. I've been COVID positive for all of April. And I put that up on Twitter and Facebook. And sure enough, it wasn't liberals that attacked me. It was so-called conservatives because I was wearing a mask. And like saying, why are you wearing that effing mask? Without saying anything about like, God bless those veterans that died. I don't care if they thank me or not, but I mean, they didn't even say thank you to all the people out there for standing up and pointing out this stuff for everybody to see. Nothing. It was, why are you wearing that effing mask? Well, first of all, I don't wear the mask for myself. I'm not that stupid. I have a beard. It doesn't create a seal around my mouth. And even if it did, it's not really to protect me, just like your mask isn't really to protect you. It's to protect others around you. I mean, heaven forbid, somebody came up and shook our hands outside, or one of the people that were there were elderly people that were there with us. Heaven forbid, somehow, some way, there's still a virus left in me and it comes out and gets in their mouth and then they, breathe it in and then they die of COVID. I'm not going to take that chance. I don't care what people think, whether or not it's real or not. I had it. I know it's real. I know it's easy to catch. So the point when I started with this is people are so emotional that they're just like seeing the stupidest stuff. Anderson Cooper was on TV today. He was literally about to cry because the president has, for some strange reason, I know he's probably trying to, for campaigning reasons, but he's going off on Joe Scarborough about his intern that, it's mysterious the way she died and people have rumored that he killed her. On purpose or not. And the president decided to start tweeting about that. I don't know why that he does this stuff, but he started tweeting about it. Right. And it's caused some uproar. The family of this woman who died, who was an intern for Morning Joe, back when he was, I guess he was a congressman, and then he had his show. He had his Joe Scarborough. You know what I'm talking about. He looks like a dopey with a freaking huge head of hair, married to his dopey wife who believes that the media is the one who tells us what we should think. I don't know if you ever heard that quote. So, regardless of why the president decided to start talking about this or tweeting about it, he did. And now Twitter is, because the family was like, can you please stop him? This is like blah, 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 as though their sanity depends on the president not tweeting about this. I mean, let's, cut through the chase. I'm sure they're leftist. Their daughter was probably a leftist. I don't know, maybe not, but let's say that maybe they are. I mean, because somebody tweets about something that happened doesn't mean that you have to rehash the whole thing in your life. Just turn Twitter off. That's what the whole thing is about. Twitter, for those of you who don't realize this, Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all these things, they are fake reality. Okay. Nobody is as tough as they think that they are on Twitter. No one, very few people are as well thought out as they are on Twitter. When they have a few minutes to respond and they type it out, oh, they don't like that, or they cut it back, or they delete it and start over. In real life, it's not like that. Real life, you stand in front of somebody, you may get the smackdown. And you probably most likely will end up being angry and won't be able to really say much of anything. Or you'll just start yelling at each other. That happens a lot too. It's not real, folks. It's not real. And if you're going to base your emotions off of that nonsense, you need to take a step away from social media for a while, or you need to check your emotions and see the reality of what's going on. I'm not going to lie to you. I get testy all the time on Twitter, but not so much from the left as I do from the right when they say stupid things and come at me. Like another lady did today. She for some reason decided to put something up. I put a post up on Facebook and Twitter, both where I don't know if you know this or not, but I've been blocked from adding people onto my Facebook professional page because of a post that I made November 19th of last year about the idiot the colonel that testified against the president about the phone call that he made to the Ukrainian prime minister or president, whatever the guy is. And so I made a post calling the guy a traitor because I do believe he is a traitor. I really do believe he's a spy. I mean, honestly, from an investigative standpoint and the totality of the circumstances, Vindman, I believe, is a spy, or if anything, he's a traitor. You can be a traitor by following socialism and trying, this is what I believe. I believe that when you are a part of a conspiracy to overthrow the government and the Constitution, you are a traitor. And I think Vindman was. And I put that up there, and they took it down and then have banned me from adding followers on my professional page. So I put that up there showing, and what's interesting is right underneath that, they put another thing. You know how, if you know, on a professional page, you wouldn't know this, but on a professional page, they always put things right above where your pictures, your profile picture and the other pictures up there, and they put little announcements up there. So it says, the top one says, I can't add anybody because because of something I posted went against their guidelines. And then right below it says, congratulations, you've been chosen to allow fan subscriptions to monetize. Right underneath that. So that's how stupid it is. They can censor you, and then the head doesn't know what the tail's doing. So I post that picture up there, and some woman comes on today and says something to the fact of, we have to get off of Twitter and Facebook and social media until they allow Alex Jones and Laura Loomer, and she named a couple other people, Gab McGinnis, and one other person, I can't remember what his name is, but until they let them back on. And I just responded to her. I said, if Alex Jones and Laura Loomer are your litmus test for honesty, you have more problems to worry about than whether or not you're being censored or they're being censored on Facebook. I mean, you should be smarter than that, so then she comes back with all kinds of nastiness, telling me I should get off my knees. Yeah, like, in other words, as though I'm doing something with the liberals. And that got me fired up a little bit. And that happens every now and then. But I believe overall, and I'm trying to give this picture of this, and I know you know what I'm talking about. People are so, on the left, are so emotional about this stuff that when they react, they don't react. They don't react like a person would normally react on Twitter. Their arguments are very futile and baseless. And there's a woman today that, and maybe I shouldn't have done this. It was in bad taste because I don't normally insult the way people look. But I had to say something because all they do is they go on there and they just rag on President Trump. And I think it's really stupid. That's all CNN and MSNBC exist for. And this woman, Kara Swisher, no idea who she is. There's some interesting things about her, though. No idea who she is. I read up on her. But she was on with two other people, and she's wearing sunglasses the whole interview and, has her collar up and looks like she's trying to be a rock star. So I looked her up and I saw several tweets where people were saying, why are you wearing those glasses? She said, it's my thing. She didn't say that she has eye problems, which I still don't know what minor sensitivity to light indoors is all about, but that's what she claims to have. And so she wears her sunglasses. But anyway, I said she looked like a dumbass wearing those sunglasses on the inside. And in fact, my exact tweet was, nothing spells dumbass like a rock star journalist, Kara Swisher, who wear sunglasses inside during an interview while complaining about how unfair character defamation is on social media. And then I wrote something to Chuck Todd. Yo, Chuck Todd, sometimes it's not defaming character. Sometimes it's just the truth. Well, she didn't like that. Of course she wouldn't like it, but she comes back and, going back and forth between she and I, and it's really kind of childish the way some of these arguments carry out. But the fact is, I was trying to make a real point, even though I was being sarcastic. And I goaded this woman into getting into like a back and forth, like children. I go look her up. I mean, she's like big time in the Democrat Party, 1 million followers on Twitter, has done, because she pointed this out to me. She's done like 500 podcasts. She's done TED Talk. She's personal friends with Hillary Clinton and all these people. She pointed this out to me that, as though I'm supposed to be wowed by this. The interesting thing is that when I looked her up, she is friends with Ben Shapiro, which I find not surprising, but because he annoys me. And I think I don't know if he's fake conservative, but he's definitely anti-Trumper. And he is, I think he's a New York or fake type of conservative. Doesn't really understand what true conservatism is all about. That's what I feel about Ben Shapiro. I think he's a great debater, but I don't think he's an expert in everything like he thinks he is. But that's typical Harvard grad. Typical, so he could probably school me in a debate, but some people are just really good at word salad and lassoing people with their words. Whatever. But I don't particularly care for him. But anyway, I find it's interesting that he's friends with her. But the thing is, this woman's like worth millions of dollars. She got millions of followers. She's deep embedded in the Democrat Party. But when she's on Twitter, it's opposite of the way it is for most people, where they deeply craft their responses to really get her, zing it with information. And, a lot of liberals love to point out statistics. And as I did the last show, episode 34, all about the statistics and the way that these things are skewed. But they love to point those out. Well, with these people now, they're all over the place. They don't even make any sense a lot of the times when they talk. It's like it's very childish. You can goat them into being emotional, which is what happened to Anderson Cooper Day when he's talking about the president and his tweets was just like practically at tears and talking about how the president is a small man. And again, I've gotten to the point, really what happened with me is the reason I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of nasty on some of these social media platforms is because the left has gotten to a point where they, first they were saying you can't fat shame, you can't say this, you can't say that, you have to stand up for all women. But then you turn around and, something happens on the liberal side, like with Joe Biden and his accuser, and they don't say anything, they don't back her. Whereas they were saying before that you just have to believe a woman no matter what when it was against Justice Kavanaugh. They have a double standard. They say you can't fat shame, but yet Nancy Pelosi and several others turn around and James Carville, and they talk about the president being fat and morbidly obese. These are things that have just caused me to not really care. I really don't care what they think anymore. Not that I cared what they thought, but for my own respect of myself, I just didn't want to say things like that. Now, I kind of find it fun because they have opened the floodgates. So now if they say, you can't say that, I say, well, talk to your Lord and Master, Nancy Pelosi. She's the one who started it. She's the one that said it was okay to go out and call people morbidly obese. So, it is what it is. Well, I think they should allow comedians to go back to saying whatever they want and leave them alone. At least we'll get a laugh out of it. So social media is not real, but their emotions are so scattered now that they're all over the place. And when this whole thing about the president tweeting this stuff about Joe Scarborough's former intern that died or was murdered or whatever happened has caused people to put pressure on Twitter to start putting him down as this isn't factually correct. Just like Facebook has these fact checkers. Well, as it turns out, this is the most remarkable story ever. As it turns out, the guy, and he's a boy really, that is in charge of the Twitter, let me pull up the exact name. He's Twitter's head of site integrity. Another one of these words that they use. Values, integrity, and they really push the facts. Well, like the statistics that I pointed out in episode 34, facts, quote unquote, don't always add up to the truth. You can say that the virus has increased 80% in this area. Well, if they had 3 people before, it's not a big increase. But they won't point out that they had only 3 before. And it's the same thing when it comes to their facts. This guy who his name is Yoel Roth, he is this head of site integrity, the guy who decides on who gets blocked or fact checked or any of this stuff. And these are some of his personal tweets. One from November 8th, 2016. I'm just saying we fly over those states that voted for a racist tangerine for a reason. Like insulting people from the South, like where I'm from and from the Midwest. Another one from 2017. He says, the "you are not the right kind of feminist" backlash to yesterday's marches has begun. Do we learn nothing from this election? And then the next tweet underneath that, he says it himself. He says, yes, that person in the pink hat is clearly a bigger threat to your brand of feminism than actual Nazis in the White House. Again, this is the guy that's going to be determining whether or not what Trump says is factual or meets their integrity codes. Meanwhile, if somebody calls you a racist or a fascist or something like that, and you report them, then there's nothing going to happen. If you're conservative, they're not going to do anything. He wrote in another one in 2010, it wouldn't be a trip to New York without at least one big scary tranny. Interesting. From the same people who would block you for saying something about transgender. 2017. How does a personality-free bag of farts like Mitch McConnell actually win elections? This is the guy that's in charge of integrity for Twitter. This just goes to show you what is happening in this fake world of social media. Now, the problem, when I do say fake, here's the problem with that, okay, is that it has become the way that people communicate in a lot of ways. It's not any different than truckers who used to talk on a CB radio. If the FCC was like monitoring it and shutting people down for saying to each other, gossip on the CB radio. Or if you were calling, my fear is that, you're texting with somebody on your phone and all of a sudden it gets removed because it's not factually what they deem factually correct. Or let's say you don't like somebody and you say it on there and it gets reported that you're bad-mouthing somebody. I mean, that's my biggest fear, right? But next to texting and talking on the phone, more people communicate through social media than anything else. But people send me direct messages all the time. And on Messenger, on Facebook, for instance, will say things that, I don't want people sending me links to things and saying things and thinking, oh, it's on direct message, I can say whatever I want. I have had people show me proof that something that they direct messaged to another person, a meme or something like that, got them kicked off of Facebook from a direct message. Twitter was shown to have been spying on the president when he was when he was campaigning from his direct messages. Listen, folks, there's no ethical standard here. Although they may like to use that word ethics, there's no legal standard. If they say that it's never been challenged, right? They say direct message encrypted. Do you even know what that means? Doesn't mean that they're not listening to it. You have no way of proving that they are or they're not. And this is the reality of social media. It's private companies that have grown so large. Like, let's say you start a small company, or you have a small group of people that meet together to talk about books, and somebody in there's a loudmouth, and you say, we don't want you in here anymore. You're saying, nasty, hate-filled speech. We want you out. And so you boot them out of there, right? Well, that's not really a violation of free speech. That's somebody who's coming into a private group, and they're saying things that don't agree with the group, so you kick them out of the group. Because regardless of what you think of the First Amendment, it does protect your right to say. It doesn't protect you from the ramifications of your speech from people. It does from government, but it's not from people. You may say that person's violating my constitutional rights, but you say something, you better be ready to back it up. And that's the way it goes. That's the way I look at it, okay? But when we look at Twitter and Facebook and even Instagram, LinkedIn for that matter, you're looking at one of the main ways that people communicate free and feel like they're free to say anything. And these companies have grown that large so that they are literally one of the top 3 ways that people communicate in the world. And I don't think myself, I believe in free speech, and I believe in private groups or companies able to, to police what they feel is correct and not correct. But when you get to the point that that this is one of the main ways of communication, I look at it as the same as if I'm standing outside and yelling at my neighbor. If the cop stood out there and said, you can't say that. That was too dirty. You can't put it out there. That was fat shaming. You can't say that. That's exactly what's happening. And I think they're too big. I think these companies are too big. They're definitely ran by people who have an ideological bend, and they are censoring people, and they are in fact censoring our First Amendment speech. And I think they should be broken up into smaller companies. They're too large, they're too powerful, they have too much money, and they should be broken up. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that from a capitalistic standpoint. I think there's just too much power. I mean, listen, I believe in capitalism. Trust me on that. I'm capitalism through and through. I've had successes and failures because I have the right to have those, or I live in a country where I'm free to have those opportunities of whatever I feel like I can work at. If I work hard at it, I can get it. And if it's an idea, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That's the way it is. But in capitalism, the interesting thing about capitalism is that it also is a playing ground for very nefarious and evil people. And the fine line there between a country striving and prospering under capitalism and being affected greatly by people who take advantage of that because they've gotten richer and richer to a point where they become powerful because of their money. That's the fine line about capitalism. But see, here's the difference between capitalism and socialism, for instance, is that capitalism is driven by the market and by the needs that people have and the ability to fulfill those needs that companies or entrepreneurs have. When you look at socialism and most religious ideologies that try to rule a country, you're looking at a need for power, a need for domination. That's what you're looking at. That's what socialism is. So it's different between that. It's different between a capitalist society and a socialist society. And when I look at the way these people that own and run these social media outlets and these tech companies that we rely on, Google, for instance, huge into censoring conservatives, and now apparently Google and YouTube both censoring people who speak out against China. Interestingly, when we look at these groups, we don't look at a capitalist mindset. They used capitalism to get to the point that they are, but once they got there, their leftist ideology kicked in, and now what they're trying to do is corral everybody's speech into what they believe is ethically right. And remember, you have the perfect example of this from thousands of years ago, written in the pages of a book that has never changed throughout history, called the Bible. The Jews call the Old Testament the Torah. We call it the Old Testament. Satan is the perfect example of this. Satan believes that he is righteous. He believes that he is religious. And he, if in power, will cause anything to happen so that you follow what he believes. That's why it's such a blessing, and it's truly what God wants for us to live in a free society. So we choose what we want and what we feel. If we study the word and to study our emotions and what keeps us healthy and strong and prosperous, we'll see that everything that God writes about in the Bible that has to do with sin are things that would keep us from being prosperous and healthy and alive. But it's our choice. Under Satan's rule, it's not a choice. But he still looks at himself as ethical and righteous. And it's a very narcissistic mindset, and that's the way socialism is. That's the way social media is. It's a very narcissistically ran area in our world today. It's very narcissistic and very full of itself. And these people that run it are imposing their ethics and values on you and me and everyone else. Another thing on Instagram that I got pulled down and I don't really worry about Instagram too much, but said I couldn't monetize or something. I can't remember what it was on Instagram, but not like I'm a bikini model who's going to make a lot of money on there. That's the weirdest freaking social media site. But I put a picture, I think I talked about this before, of Conan. It's not the real name of the dog, but the dog that went in after al-Baghdadi when he blew himself up. And it was during Halloween, and I took a picture of something that was on the internet of some guy laying in front of his couch on all this candy. And I put his head, al-Baghdadi's head, imposed on that guy with a quote coming out of his mouth saying, "Mine, all mine," because all that candy's there. And then Conan's face behind the couch popping up saying, "Trick or treat, bitch." And that got pulled off of Instagram because it said that I was had posted something that was promoting violence. It's not real, but the thing that is real, social media is not real life. But the thing that is real life about it is that it is a main place that people go to exchange ideas and debate things and say stupid things, and it's being censored to the point where they have actually found, and as I pointed out, the leftist general McChrystal, another leftist general, is in bed with DARPA and some leftist social media dude to try and counter any of the voices that are on Twitter and social media by overwhelming them with nonsense in their to stop the conversation, in essence. And by the way, the guy who runs or he either created or runs Instagram. I don't have that story in front of me. It just came to my head. Took part in investing money to try to defame Roy Moore when he was running for Senate down in Alabama. I mean, this stuff really does exist. And these people are heavily embedded in the leftist socialist movement in this country. And listen, I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not one of these people who's trying to get clicks from people. The reality is this is the truth, and it should scare you. It should alarm you, and you should realize that it's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any better right now unless, as I always say, the people rise up and actually stand together against it. I mean, I hate to scare people. I'm not trying to scare you, but there's a chance that the president won't win in November. There's a story out right now about Corey Lewandowski and one other guy from Arizona coming and meeting with Trump and like telling him that it's not good in Arizona. Listen, a lot of it I'm not saying it's all on Trump. Trump's done a spectacular job. I think he's done an okay job with this virus. I don't think people have died because of his response. I think people have been saved because of his response. But we don't have time for this nonsense crap and these idiotic freaking press conferences that go on all the time. If this virus is so real and so deadly, that's what I would expect that the president would be involved with. Now, on the other hand, he's fighting another war and going to battle with these reporters and social media at the same time. And I get it. I do get that. But we have to pick and choose where we do our battles. And so anyway, I think what I was going to get at there is that I see the importance of both of these things. And I think that a lot of people that are not understanding of what's happening in social media would be more likely to not vote for the president because they think he has been too involved with social media and not paying close enough attention to what's happening with the virus. That's my take on that. And I think it's a slippery slope. But here's the thing about this. If the people were the ones, just like everything else in this country, folks, if the people stood up to social media, then we wouldn't have these issues. We really wouldn't have these issues. Now, I've talked about this before. My friend Drago, who was in the second episode, I believe, of my podcast, talking about socialism. He, was from Poland and was put in a Polish prison for 3 years for being a part of an underground against the socialist part of the socialist government there. Got out of prison, came to the United States, became an American citizen, joined the Navy, and became a Navy SEAL for 20 years. He has developed a thing called connectzing.com. I joined it, and I would suggest that you join it too, because he has modeled this thing to destroy Facebook. And hopefully he'll model something else that destroys Twitter. I think he's working on that right now. By the way, this isn't a commercial. I'm not doing a commercial for Connect Zing. I'm being honest with you. There's a lot of different platforms that people run that they say are conservative platforms. Drago's not really saying that this is a conservative platform. What he's saying is it's a platform where you'll be able to have free speech and you're not going to be censored. Now, if he found that, McChrystal and these other people were up to their antics, those people would be gone. And that's not censorship. That's defeating leftists that are trying to subvert. So that's that area of social media, and he wouldn't allow that to happen. And so I joined it. It's almost, I think it's going to be completed this week. You can already join it, but you just have to get enough people have to walk away from Facebook and Twitter to stop that nonsense. It's not, look, if you want to go in there and argue with liberals, that's fine. If you want to go somewhere and share information, true or not, about from a conservative standpoint, then you should go over here. And I will tell you, I'm very hard on conservatives when they post stuff that I think is just idiotic and stupid, but it's your right. And I'm smart enough to see through it. I wish you were. And I hope people are able to see through that stuff. But this whole thing about fact checking, which Facebook and Twitter and all these other, and Instagram do. I'm waiting for LinkedIn to say something about some things I've posted on there. The fact checking, just like the facts of the coronavirus, can't be proved quite often one way or the other, because one, a lot of information is just not in, and two, it is skewed by every person with an ideological bend that touches it, such as the guy who is running Twitter's site integrity, Yoel Roth. And I tweeted at him. Let's see if they block me on Twitter now for that. Bottom line with this is that the president doing all this fighting with Twitter, and mainly Twitter, but it's social media in general. If the people were just walking away from Twitter, he wouldn't have to worry about that. He'd go wherever the people were. And as far as media goes, I think he's already past that. I don't know why he still fights with the media. I wouldn't have these ridiculous press conferences. I would just have my own social media show. Why does the president do that? I mean, people would tune in for that on, pick a social media platform, put it out on all of them. Create your own. Anyway. I want to flip subjects real quick. All right. Let me just say this one other thing about that, about this whole fact check and ethics and morals. If they're not going to boot Kathy Griffin from Twitter for saying that the president should be injected with air, because that'll kill you with a syringe. That's what she said. Then how can they ever say anything about anybody else? Honestly. This stuff it's gotten to a point where I'm not real sure if the country is going to make it without an armed conflict. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think we're going to make it without that. Whether it's of our choosing or not. Now, the other thing that's happening, again with the leftists, okay, are the ballots and this debate on whether or not we should have mail-in ballots. I mean, Jerry Nadler in 2004, I believe it was saying that paper ballots can't be trusted. It's too easy to rig the election using paper ballots. Actually, his exact words were, paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud. If Jerry Nadler, who's the biggest idiot in the world, can see that paper ballots are extremely susceptible to fraud, and I'll disagree with him on this, but mail-in ballots are the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. That ballot that a person fills out should never leave that person's hand until it goes into a secured location, a secured box. If you can't be sure that your package or your mail is going to get from your hand to the person that you're sending it to the United States Post Office, how could we ever think that a mail-in ballot is going to get where it's supposed to be without being messed with? There's no way to check that. The post office would say, well, we have routing. Listen, forget it. There's no way to make sure 100% because it goes through too many hands. I don't understand why paper ballots ever went away, though. Not mail-in, just paper ballots. In Arkansas, you go up, you get this long piece of paper. It had everything on there, and it would have a line that was not complete with an arrow going to yes or no or this name or that name. And you take a pen and you fill that line in where it shows a complete arrow going across to the thing that you wanted to vote yes for. And then you put it in a box that's being protected and watched over by ballot people. How is it that that's ineffective? Not all technology is good. I mean, that's clearly evident when it comes to the smarter our phones get, the dumber we get, and the more arrogant people are because they think they can just look something up, and then they are all of a sudden, they think they're like the Matrix where they stick those things in the back of their neck and they're all of a sudden smarter. That's what they think. I really think people would Google how to fly a helicopter and go get in one and think they could fly it. That's how stupid they are. And the technology for these electronic voting is tons of those things are owned by George Soros. They're manufactured in China. I don't trust any of that stuff electronically. A man or woman should be able to come up, fill out the form, darken in who they want to vote for, and put it in a box. And that should be hand counted. Why would we ever get away from that? That is less susceptible to fraud than anything else. I don't care what the techies tell you. I don't trust the techies because techies that are smarter than those techies can figure out ways to commit fraud on a computer. I don't understand. Well, no, I do understand. I understand because they're trying to commit fraud. That's why. But the American people should not allow this. It should be paper ballots. They should drive up if they wanted to do it that way, or have two lines, one for drive up and one for walk up. You show an ID. You have to show an ID if you drive a car, if you get on a plane, if you want to learn how to fly a plane, you have to show an ID. Why is it that one of the most important things we do fundamentally as an American is vote? Why would you not want people to have an ID to show who they are? I'll tell you why. Because of fraud. It's all about fraud. I mean, it's not any mystery. Why can't we just walk up there, show our ID 6 feet apart, take the form away from the person wearing rubber gloves and a mask, take a pen, go through there, fill in what we want, and they don't even touch it. You put it in a box that's locked and watched by people hand chosen, and then you walk away. And somebody said on Twitter, oh, so you're willing to wait in line for 12 hours? Listen, freedom comes at a price. And if the cost is for me to stand in the line for 12 hours, I'll stand in line for 12 hours. I don't care. I've done worse things. Try going in the lean and rest for over an hour. That's the push-up position. You'll be saying, man, I wish I could stand in line for 12 hours. So this whole bout thing, it's all, what's crazy about it is it's all about fraud. They're doing it right in your face. Just like all the rest of this stuff. Amazon, there was a story on Drudge where Amazon and like 10 or more of these, let me see here. Let me pull this up and I will tell you exactly which one it is or how many it was. Amazon. 11 local TV stations pushed the same Amazon script segment. So it's the same segment produced by Amazon, and 11 local TV stations put that out as though it was real news. This, I'm telling you, folks, it's not a hard investigation. It's not difficult. It's all right there, right in front of you. There's two other things I want to say real quick before we go. One, I saw the video of the man who died because the police officer in Minneapolis had him cuffed and had his knee on the guy's neck for 10 minutes. Now, I am law enforcement through and through. You know that. I've been a cop on the street. I've been an air marshal. I've been an FBI agent. This is clearly a constitutional violation. They got the guy cuffed. You can't punch, kick, or do stupid stuff like this lean on a guy's neck so he can't breathe after you. I mean, some of this stuff you can do before you cuff him, because if the guy's resisting arrest and you got to go to dukes with the guy, or you get him down and you put your knee in his neck while they cuff him, that's not a constitutional violation. He is struggling and fighting you, and you can meet that fight with equal force. But once he's cuffed, unless he is like just jumping all over the place, and even in that case, there's still ways to keep him still. Hog time, do whatever you got to do. But if somebody says, I can't breathe, okay, a lot of times that's a BS line that people are saying because they're uncomfortable in the cuffs. But that's different than when you got your knee and the weight of your body on the guy's neck and then he goes limp. And I'll watch the video. I recommend you watch the video. Any cops watching this or listening to this podcast, watch that video. I don't care if it's Charles Manson laying on the ground. Once he is in cuffs, why didn't they put him in a car? There's no ethical, and now I'm using their words, there's no legal, there's no tactical, that's the word I'm looking for. There's no tactical reason for him to continue to sit on that guy's neck for 10 minutes until he's dead. And then what's even worse about it is they had a press conference later and they lied. They lied and said that the reason that they did that was because the guy was resisting, and that he was, and then they put him in, because of difficulties, they put him in the ambulance, and then he died at the hospital. I don't know if he actually died at the hospital. I'm watching the video. The guy just stops. If he wasn't dead, he was damn near close. 4 officers have been fired, but I think this is a criminal charge. This is worse than any shoot that I've seen, where a guy's coming at him with a knife and they shoot him 16 times. I mean, I argued for that over and over again on CNN when I was on there, that you can't overkill somebody. If they don't drop the knife, you keep shooting. But in this case, I mean, it's not a grotesque video. It's just, it sends shivers through me, because to have your airway blocked is bad enough. But if you're cuffed, even if you're a bad guy, it's just hard to watch. And listen, folks, again, I'm blue through and through. And if I was over fighting an enemy in the military, whether it's overseas or here domestically, killing is what the SEALs do, and they do it in a very professional manner. It's brutal. And I have no problem with that. But good guy or not, that was an American citizen that was laying on the ground, and that cop killed him. And I look at this just as bad as I do down in, I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina, where a cop shot a guy in the back who was not armed, who had wrestled him. He had wrestled him on the ground, got up to run away, and the cop just pulled his gun out and just shot him in the back. There was no evidence that he had committed a violent felony with a weapon and was running to seek cover, which is the only reason why he could have shot him in the back. And this is disheartening. Good cops don't need this nonsense. And I said it before, I'll say it again. The reason this stupidity exists is because of a terrible hiring practices. Affirmative action have, through the years, has created a culture of hiring based on filling the numbers of minorities or somebody who's gay or females. And again, I have no problem with somebody who's a minority, who's gay, or who's a female, but you need to be qualified. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. If you're qualified to do the job, come on, let's get you on the job, or at least have you compete for the position. But that's not the way people have been picking people for these positions for years. And These cops that did this may have been able to pass all those tests and say and perform effectively. But I will guarantee you that the training that they received has been approved by people who have made it through the ranks that were hired for the wrong reasons. It's a trickle-down effect. You hire a bunch of people for the wrong reasons that aren't qualified. They're going to get in. Some of them will make rank. And if one of them gets up in the top echelons, they will cause training to suffer. And this is clearly an example of terrible standard operating procedures, terrible tactics, and other officers around him that didn't stop the situation. Terrible situation. And that's my opinion on that. And I'd love to hear what you have to say on that. You can reach me at on Twitter, @Gilliam_seal, on Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn, on YouTube, Jonathan T. Gilliam. And you can also write me at jonathantgilliam.com, although my website's down right now. I got to get it back up, but the email still works. Last thing, I was going to start off with this, but last thing I want to say is that Rush Limbaugh is not doing well. He's not doing well. And I wish I could talk to him. I don't know Rush, never met him. But I know the job that he does. And it is, it's extreme. It is an extreme job that he does. 3 hours sitting there talking doesn't seem like it's a lot to people. But when you are live on the radio talking to millions of people, the energy, I can't even tell you the energy it flows through. When I used to host for Sean Hannity, probably won't be doing that anymore. When I used to host for Sean Hannity, there's like 20 million people listening to that. I'd go in there for 3 hours. My book would zoom up into the top 100 on Amazon. It takes a tremendous amount of energy, tremendous amount. And what Rush Limbaugh does and has done for this country, I don't know if people realize that. You know, you don't have to be a SEAL in the Navy to be a true warrior. This guy, he's a true warrior. And what he did for our country in conservatism, he's like a one-man wrecking machine. He's like special ops in the radio business. He systematically changed conservatism in this country. And listen, life is life. And we live and we die. There's no escape. Rush, you know, has cancer, and it's evidently he's having a tough time with it. She's still on radio. Amazing. So I salute him, just like I would salute any other warrior for all he's done for this country in service to this country. And I think it's absolutely, my hat's off to that guy. Amazing work. And I think that is where we'll close it. I almost had my eyeballs burn out right then because I was looking on Drudge, the story about Rush, and then over to the left is a picture of Jack from Twitter with a nose ring. Ugh. Isn't that a good opposition right there? You can see Rush Limbaugh, this guy who's done so much for this country, even when he's this sick. And then the social media guy from Twitter with his nose ring. And he's going to determine on the ethics and morals of your speech. Think about that. It'd be totally different if Rush was in charge of that. Think about that. That should not just frighten you, it should piss you off, folks. Listen, I love all of you. I thank God for you. I thank God for letting me be born in this country. A free man and having served freedom. I love it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat officially, but I'm going to do it here for now because I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.